Hi everybody, I'm Ward Officer First Class Wong from 918 Griffon Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron, and today we're doing a video on how to polish your boots. In this video we're going to talk about 6 different things. We're going to talk about types of boots, we're going to talk about what you need to polish your boots, we're going to talk about what to do when you get a new pair of boots, we're going to talk about how to polish your boots, how to maintain your boots after you've worn them, and other tips and tricks. So without further ado, let's get into this video.
So first off, there's going to be 3 different types of boots. So we got Gen 1, we got Gen 2, and we got Gen 3. All of them are a little different, but they polish just the same. Next off, we're going to talk about what we need. Let me do some magic here and snap. Oh my goodness. We're going to need a polishing cloth. We're going to need some boot polish. We love boot polish. We're going to need a toothbrush. And finally, we're going to need some water. I like to use a spray bottle.
So now we're going to talk about what to do with your boot when you first get it. Now, I've already unlaced these boots, but you're going to want to unlace your boots. The next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove all the wax off of the boot. When you get your boot, there's going to be a protective layer of wax on it. We're going to want to scrub that off. So here in this sink, we're going to turn the water on to very, very hot. Okay, and we're going to let that run for a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty hot. You're going to want it to be fairly hot, and then you're going to put your boot under, and then you're just going to want to scrub the boot, okay? So you want to scrub the boot. If you have like a metallic spoon or something, you can also use that to scrape off the wax. But in general, you want to get around the entire boot. Make sure all of that wax gets off things. So now we're going to go back. Okay, so now we're going to talk about base coats. I'm going to explain why a base coat is important for your boot. So first of all, if you feel the surface of your boot, you're going to realize that it's very, very bumpy. Okay, so let's say like the surface of your boot, if we zoomed it up like really, really big, it would look like this. Okay, so feel your boot. Okay, pause the video and feel your boot. Okay, you're gonna realize that it's gonna be very, very bumpy and uneven if you have a new boot. The goal of a base coat is to put a layer of polish so that it covers the cracks. So your first base coat might look like this, but then you want to put more base coat slowly. Okay, and then eventually you're gonna have a very smooth layer of polish to work on. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now that your boot is dry, we're going to use some of our boot polish. So you're going to put 2 fingers on your glove, and then you're going to grab the end of it, and you're going to wrap. So now you have 2 fingers here, like this. Then we're good to go. So now you want to take a generous amount of your boot polish. Okay, so take like this much. Okay, so now we're going to be applying what is known as a base coat. Okay, so for a base coat, you want a thick layer of polish all around the boot. Okay, next thing, when we're applying base coats, we want to separate the boot into different parts. So you want the front part, which is this part right here, and then you want to do this panel right here. Then you want to do the heel part right here. And then you want to do the other panel, which is right here. Okay, and finally we are also going to be shining the tongue part, but we don't actually put a base coat on that. Okay, so anyways, you want to base coat the entire boot. Okay, so you want to again just put a heavy layer of polish onto this boot. Okay, so now that you're done your base coat, you want to let it sit for a little bit. So you want to take your cloth, you drape it over, and you want to leave it. So after you've let your base coat sit for a little bit, we want to apply another base coat. So you can apply another base coat, and then afterwards you're going to let it sit for a little bit again. And then you're going to do this a bunch of times. Okay, so now we're going to talk about polishing our boot. So this is a different boot from before that has a base coat on it, but you want to just basically put base coats on until you're good. Aside from the polish and the cloth that we were using earlier, we also need water. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and open up the shoe polish tin, and we're going to put some water in there like this. Okay, so again with this cloth, we're going to do the finger thing, so we got to go like this. I'm going to put the cloth over the 2 fingers and then wrap like that. So now we have 2 fingers right here. Okay, so we want to use less polish than before from when we were doing the base coats, because at this point we're not trying to put a lot of polish on it. So we want to just kind of touch the polish like this, just a little bit like this, and then get a little bit of water on it, okay? And now we're gonna be polishing our boot. So when we polish our boot, we wanna go in small circles, okay? So we're gonna go like this, and you'll make small circles around your boot. If you feel like your polish is a little dry, add a little bit more water. Okay. And once you feel like you're just rubbing the boot again, we can add a little bit more polish. But use everything sparingly. If you notice the cloth is making circles like this is good. You want to see circles. But eventually, we want to polish the circles out. Okay, so we're just gonna go polish this. Sometimes with boots, because of how your boot's like worn in, you'll separate this part of the front with this little top part. And when we polish the little top part, we're gonna actually switch to one finger instead of two fingers. Okay. So now that our boot is getting quite shiny, we actually want to make sure that we keep going so that all the water is gone. And then sometimes in order to do that, we can add a little bit more polish just to help the water get absorbed a little quicker. But you do not want to leave any water marks on your boots, because when the water evaporates, sometimes there might be salts or other minerals in there that might leave marks on your boots. When we're not doing big pieces like this part and we're doing more small areas like this part, or maybe these areas right here, like this area and like maybe these areas, along with this area, we don't actually want to use two fingers. We want to use one finger so that we have a little bit more control on how we're polishing. And we put the cloth like that, and again, we're just gonna hold and then we're gonna wrap like that. So now we have one finger right here. And then same thing, we're gonna just put a little bit of polish, bits of polish there, and then we're gonna add a little bit of water. And then we're gonna go again. So this time, we want to make sure that we polish the entire area of the boot. Okay, and also make sure we just polish the area that we haven't polished yet, because we polished here already, so we don't want to actually over polish that part. So we just want to focus on one little area at a time. So now we're going to talk about how to maintain your boot after you come back from a parade night. You're going to realize that sometimes your boot might get a little dusty, there might be a lot of dirt or water marks on it, or maybe somebody scuffed it. But before we want to fix our boot and make it as shiny as it was before, we want to make sure that we get all the dust and stuff off. There might be some like mud or like dirt stains, and we want to clear all of that off before we continue polishing our boot. Here we're using cold water. If we use hot water, then the polish might actually get a little soft, and we might actually put the dirt into the polish instead of getting it out of the polish. So we want to use cold water here. Be very gentle. Okay. Now we're going to talk about how to deal with scuffs. So if you see here, I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, but if you see here, there's actually a bunch of little scuffs along my boot. Okay, so this is classified as a big scuff right here. Okay, that's when layers of polish are actually removed from whatever you scuffed. Okay, and there's a surface scuff, which is something like this. Okay, and this doesn't actually ruin any of the layers of the polish, and it actually is just on the first one. Okay, so to deal with these types of scuffs, we're just gonna polish as usual, and we're just gonna buff it out. For scuffs like this, we're gonna talk about how to deal with these as well. First things first, we're gonna get our cloth again. So this time we're gonna use two fingers. Okay, two fingers right here. And we're going to take a little bit of polish, okay, and a little bit of water. And for this surface scuff right here, we're just going to go over it, okay. And as we go over it, we're not intentionally going over it a little bit more. We're just polishing the entire toe like usual. A little bit of water and a little bit more polish is necessary. Usually we want to go a ratio of about 2 to 1 for any type of boot. Okay, so that means approximately double the amount of water than the polish that you use. If you see this scuff right here, this is called a major scuff. If you couldn't see it before, it's right here. Mm-hmm. And this is when layers of polish are actually removed when somebody scuffed your boot, and we're actually going to need to take a little bit more, a few more steps to make sure that we can do this properly. But yeah, there's no good way to go about dealing with cancer. So for me and this boot, usually I would just polish all the way around here. We would polish this little area there. We'd polish up here, and we would generally try to avoid this area because everything we do would flake off. The other alternative we can do is strip your boot. So that's the two different ways that we can deal with cancer. So the first one again is just to avoid it, right? The second one is to put base coats on, and if nothing else works, we can just try to strip it and just redo it all together. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna now talk about how to maintain your welts and blacking your boots. Okay, so for that, we're gonna use some of our polish here, and we're gonna use our trusty little toothbrush. If you have one tin of boot polish, you're actually gonna want to use the edges with your toothbrush, just in case you get a little like dirt and dust into the polish. You just want to make sure that you keep it to one little spot. So if you have an extra tin of polish, like an old tin of polish that you don't use as much anymore, that looks kind of beat up like this one, then we can use this as well, and this can be your crappy polish to use to blacken your boots. So I'm going to go ahead here and we're just going to get some polish onto our toothbrush. Okay, so now we're going to run our toothbrush along the edges of our boot, so right here. Right, sometimes there might be dust or dirt in there that we can't get out, so we're just gonna blacken it, make sure it's all black so that it's good to go for inspection. Okay, you want to be very careful because this is the part where polish might get onto your table, so you just want to make sure that you have the tools necessary to clean off your table, or put something over the table before you go do this. But yeah, after you've done the welt part, you can also go ahead and go along the bottom of the boot, just on the soles. Make sure everything's black, like so. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a few tips and tricks while we're in the middle of doing all these things. So the first tip that I want to give you guys is to be persistent. Do it, polish your boots often. Generally, I would recommend doing it at least 15 minutes a day, maybe an hour on each boot for the week. The second one I want to give you guys is to keep yourself busy, distract yourself while you are polishing your boots. Go on Netflix, go on YouTube, put on a movie, binge watch a show, do something that will make the hour that you spent polishing your boots a little bit more enjoyable. My final tip would be to just take care of your boots. Don't be throwing them around. Don't be kicking them against things on your regular parade nights. The more scuffs that you can avoid, honestly, the better, and your boots are going to thank you for that. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, let us know down in the comments below. Hopefully somebody will help you with that, and you can also ask your seniors. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Hope to see you guys soon.